Yeah, so just I'm going to ask Trishna to take over after me. All I'm going to do right now is just say thank you to everybody who's agreed to talk over here today on this very important topic of stranding networks and response and what we can actually gain um, from this entire exercise, most of it that which is voluntary in India. So just to introduce the panelists, it's Dr. Andrew Brownlow from Scotland, Mr. Vasudevan, Sri Vasudevan, who was the Mangrove Foundation head in Maharashtra when the marine cell started in India, so to say, the first time that Forest Department in India started doing marine work, marine megafauna work, especially. There's Pooja from Goa, who has been coordinating the Goa Stranding Network, which started very impromptu. We were just discussing the history of it a bit earlier today, and now has reached a level of, which she'll explain to you later. Shantanu and Suranjana, who have been working with the forest departments in Goa and Karnataka. Other than the fact that they're wildlife vets, they've also been doing stranding response in both these states. And who am I missing? Francis, who's not here, right? Hopefully she will come soon, but Francis is the commissioner at the Marine Mammal Commission right now. And she is also one of those people who started very young dealing with stranded animals. Of course, she's a really great veterinarian from those days who's been working on seals when she started out. So hopefully she will wake up soon enough and join us. With this, Trishla, I'll let you take over and I'll look at the admissions if people are coming in.
Yeah, that'll be great. So, hello everyone. A warm welcome to all our panelists and participants. Thank you so much for taking time on a Sunday to make it to this panel discussion. I am Trishala Ashok, a conservation filmmaker and wildlife science communicator. I am super excited to be moderating this important panel discussion today with Dipani Sutaria, founder of Marine Mammal Research and Conservation Network India. Dipani has already shared what this discussion is going to be about. So, without wasting any time, let's dive right in to today's discussion. So, first up on our panel, we have Sri N. Vasudevan, a senior Indian Forest Officer of 1987 batch in the rank of Principal Chief Conservator of Forests. He is the Managing Director of Forest Development Corporation of Maharashtra.
I was.
Yeah,
Okay,
he
okay,
was.
carry on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Managing Director of Forest Department Corporation of Maharashtra and has completed his first master's program in marine biology from Cochin University and the second in public policy and management from IIM Bangalore. He is responsible for pioneering many initiatives in the area of coastal and marine biodiversity conservation, including the formation of Mangrove Foundation of Maharashtra, declaration of the Thane Creek Flamingo Sanctuary, and the establishment of the Coastal and Marine Biodiversity Center at Airoli, Mumbai. He has introduced many livelihood programs for the conservation of mangroves in Maharashtra. During his tenure at the Mangrove Cell, the mangrove cover of Maharashtra rose by a phenomenal 72%. He has won several awards for his recognition and has published 2 books and contributed several articles on mangroves and the coastal ecosystem. Today, he will be speaking about his experience in developing institutional mechanisms for dealing with standings in Maharashtra. We're so glad to have you on the panel today, sir. You may now please take over. But before that, may I please request participants to turn off their video and audio. And if you have any questions, please uh, uh, add it to the chat box and we'll address it at the end of the Q&A round. Thank you.
Thank you, Trishala. Thank you, Dipani, for organizing this. And I think I was not prepared for starting this entire panel discussion. Maybe you wanted to start with the least informed and then progressively go up. Because technically I am not very sound in this subject. My experiences are more on the managerial side, but that also I think is somewhat important. And I must also inform that I'm a retired person now. I retired in 22 and then worked as National Project Coordinator for a Green Climate Fund project with UNDP. But now, right now, I'm in totally different field. I'm a member of the Kerala Administrative Tribunal and totally cut off from the conservation part. So my experiences are all dated, but I think it may add some flavor to this discussion because people probably don't know about what mangrove cell is and what we have been doing on Mangrove Foundation for that matter. Actually, uh, our mangrove cell was created in 2012, which is a state government initiative of the Maharashtra state, which is a province in India, you can say, equivalent to a province. And this basically started in the background of certain litigations which happened in the High Court of Bombay, and certain direction from the High Court to preserve mangroves. So basically, the idea was to have a unique, specialized unit as part of the forest department to focus on mangrove conservation. But then, while formulating the TOR for the mangrove cell, we thought now we could probably broaden the scope of the mangrove cell and make it a body which will focus also on the coastline marine biodiversity conservation aspects in the state. So that's how we came into the picture regarding all other coastal marine biodiversity conservation, including turtle conservation, some exploration of marine mammals, some coral transplantation, things like that, and also working with the fishing community and incentivizing them to rescue the marine animals which are entangled in fishing nets, removal of the solid waste from the sea, the nets and other plastic debris which are abandoned, which what we usually call as ghost nets. So a few things we did. Basically, our work was, I should say, focused on mangrove conservation. But then we had a unique Jeff project. It was a small project, but it was confined to the southernmost coastal district of Maharashtra called Sindhudurg. But that project gave us a lot of flexibility and opportunity to delve into coastal and marine biodiversity conservation in our own small way. And it is at that point that this team of young researchers, whose inspiration was none other than Dipani, they formed a group called Konkan Cetacean Research Team, KCRT. And we gave them a little bit of funding to explore the marine cetaceans of the coast of Sindhudurg, mainly dolphins and finless porpoise. But they also happened to come across some Brody's whale, and they photographed some, even a blue whale. So that's why we somehow, reluctantly got into this area. But then this team was really very enthusiastic. It was, some people maybe there in this group, Mir Sule, Kate Kijog, Isha Bopadika, and all those people, and always guided and led by Dipani's wealth of wisdom in this field. And while this was going on, we came to know about a lot of strandings which were happening. And you must understand that till 2012, Forest Department was not really involved in any marine conservation, including mangrove conservation. Mangroves are all with the revenue department of the government, and we were nowhere involved. But then a shift happened in 2012. And at that point, all this started. We started taking note of the strandings happening at different places. One of the first was near Alibag, which was south of Mumbai. There was a Brody's whale which was reported. But then I checked all the records of past strandings. There were not many, but whatever it was always reported as whale shark. Because now people didn't know whether it was a whale or a shark, so they conveniently reported it as whale sharks. It was always whale shark, whale shark, whale shark. There's so many whale shark, but no other strandings. But then I realized this is arising out of the ignorance of our staff. So in due course, we also gave them a little bit of training, awareness, how to deal with stranding, and also we built a network of NGOs and citizens and experts in this field, and also we conducted some workshops for the veterinarians and other things. So this is basically some total of our experience in mangrove cell. In 2015, we founded the Mangrove Foundation. It's called the Mangrove and Marine Biodiversity Conservation Foundation of Maharashtra, but in short, you can say Mangrove Foundation. And this is like it's mangrove cell is part of the government. It has got regulatory functions as far as mangrove conservation is concerned, but it also has other development. But Mangrove Foundation is purely a, hello, a development body. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah. So sorry for that interruption. And then there was one major report of a live stranding of a blue whale from Revdanda, which is near Alibag, south of Mumbai. And on hearing that, although I was bedridden with back pain and all, I still rushed to that place. And by the time I reached, unfortunately, the animal had died. I got the news, only on the early morning, and this had happened in the evening. And by the time I reached there, it was a 4-hour travel. But a very unfortunate event. And I realized that probably we could have saved it, but you never know. You need a lot of expertise in doing that. They tried to push it for about 6 hours back to the sea. It was a young calf. It was not a full adult. But then it was again after its death. It is a whale of a problem for us to handle. There's a whole lot of people coming and watching. You have to have crowd control, and then it was buried very deep. But somehow, in a couple of days, the whole thing came up, and it was causing so much stench that without even checking with any of us, the local staff simply burnt it, and nothing was left of that. So that was the story. This was in 2015, June 2015. And in 2016, there was another report. Of course, there were dead strandings of mostly broody whale from Maharashtra was during that time. And in 2016, there was a report that a blue whale was stranded alive, and in Ratnagiri. It's about south of this place where it happened earlier. And the local people came together. At that time, by the time we had built a network of people who could, who have the basic idea about how to handle stranding. So somehow they were able to tie this to a rope and pull with 2 boats and somehow managed to rescue it. So that is one successful rescue that happened during that time. And in 2020, there was a major event happened because it happened in Juhu, and a whale was stranded there. A huge 45 feet whale was stranded there. And that was a big management problem for us because everyone was rushing and people were asking questions about where are you going to bury, what are you going to do with it, all that. So our staff was also completely involved. Somehow we buried it close to the Juhu beach itself in a private property. But unfortunately, the idea was to at least get the skeleton at a later point of time and display it so that at least children will come to know about the size of this animal and the various features of this. Take some interest in this unique animal. But after a couple of years, when we explored, there's nothing left of that. But then we were fortunate. Another stranding happened. I mean, I wouldn't say fortunate, purely from the point of view of collecting the skeleton. We were fortunate that there was another stranding that happened, And before it was decomposed, it was partly decomposed. We rescued the skeleton with the help of the local people and brought it to Airoli, where we had established the Coast and Marine Biodiversity Center with the idea of displaying it. The display is still not ready, but the skeleton is there. At least we have some skeleton. So during this period, people are asking questions, why so many strandings now? But my answer is that strandings have always been there. Probably they were not reported; they went unreported, and social media was not that active in the years before that. And the reports also showed stranding of whale sharks, and as I already said. So that was probably an issue. But this Konkan Cetacean Research team brought a lot of new information about dolphins, and they also every time a stranding happens, these are the people whom we could talk to, consult, and tell our people how to take tissue samples and send it to the laboratories. But we could never do a proper autopsy of any of the strandings because of the lack of expertise. That's why we conducted a workshop for the veterinarians and got some experts from outside. And it was a 4-day workshop that Deepani basically organized along with the Mangrove Foundation. And this has led to a lot of interest in this subject among the veterinarians. Later on, we created a marine respondent group, which even now, when there's a stranding of a turtle or a dolphin or any other marine animal, then they rush now to the spot and they also ensure that the forest officers reach there. So at least there is now a kind of attention, and at least there is a recognition who is responsible for handling such stranding. So that has happened in Maharashtra, and the institutions responsible for that are the Mangrove Cell and the Mangrove Foundation. And fortunately, Mangrove Foundation, due to the various projects which happen in the coastal areas, they could gather a corpus fund of about 625 crores or so now. So from that interest available from that corpus, they are conducting a lot of activities, including marine mangrove conservation and also research into various marine related subjects. We also encourage young researchers to conduct studies and they may not get funding from anywhere else. So Mangrove Foundation supports it. So an institution built by the government is there to actually support this kind of activities. I don't know whether the true potential of that organization is completely realized even at this point, but I encourage everyone who is interested in India to approach Mangrove Foundation to conduct this kind of studies or research or involvement in managing stranding episodes. So this is in short the experience that I have, and I'll be glad to contribute at any subsequent stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That's a lot of experience. We were so glad to have you on the panel today. Now, next up, we have Dr. Frances Cullen, a veterinarian. She has joined us on call, right? Hi, Dr. Frances. Okay. So she has worked with stranded marine mammals for over 25 years in California, USA. And she's currently a research associate at the University of California in Davis, USA, and serves as a commissioner of the US Marine Mammal Commission. Fun fact, she's also an avid runner and a rock climber. She's also known to use knives like climber's spittins to hoist herself up onto giant whale carcasses. So over to you, Dr. Frances. Welcome, and you may now take over.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for allowing me to join you this evening, morning, my time in California. So it's an honor to be part of this panel. I have met Deepani a number of times at conferences, and I've always been really interested in your collective work in India, developing the stranding network and responding to these animals, because I think they're such an important source of information. I wasn't sure. I put together about 10 slides and a PowerPoint. If you'd like me to share those at this point, I'll just talk.
Yeah, yes, please. That'd be great.
So
I've added you as a co-host, so you should be able to share your presentation.
I do. Let me see. Sorry.
Yep, we can see it.
You can see that? Okay,
Yep.
so basically, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and then strandings, and then we can, open up the questions afterwards. So obviously, this is me with a gray whale in the California San Francisco Bay. So not all strandings are in great places to respond. By background, I'm a veterinarian. So top left is me doing necropsies on sea lions. So I've spent 30 years working as a vet, so looking at diseases in marine mammals and trying to understand the importance of disease in the populations. What do they do to the wild animals? How important they are for conservation. So my reason for necropsying or responding to strandings has always been disease driven. In the center, you'll see a picture of myself with a dead harbor seal with a biologist, Bob Jones. And I put that there because it reminds me that some of the first strandings I went to, the biologists and I were at complete disconnect. I wanted to cut open the animal and take samples to look at diseases while it was fresh. And they wanted the skeleton intact for museums and didn't want me to cut up the animal. So we'd sit on the beach like this and have these long conversations. And in the end, we came to agreements and we worked together. And now Bob Jones on the right is retired, but he's a long-standing friend, and it's really possible to come to an agreement where both parties are getting the samples they need for their studies. And then finally on the right, there's a picture of myself with the team at the Marine Mammal Commission. So now as the chair of the Marine Mammal Commission, I work to try to ensure that the health and disease of marine mammals are incorporated into national policy in that way that we use what we find from strandings for actions to protect marine mammals around the country. And then Andrew Brownlow is with us on this panel. So he and myself are both on the steering committee of a recently founded global stranding network. And this network currently is mostly a website for sharing information, open to anybody who works on strandings. And as a steering committee, we are really looking for advice on how to make this website more useful for people. Anyone can join, you sign up, and then our website manager, she will check that you are a genuine human being, and then you can join and put the information on the website as well. So the reason I think we care about stranded marine mammals is because they are really sentinels of the ocean condition. They can tell us what's out there and guard us against surprise. And I think it's important to remember as we work is that stranded animals are simply an individual from a wild ocean population. But it's very hard for us to get our hands on, hard to study as they're relatively inaccessible. And they don't belong to us. We are given the luxury of being able to sample this animal when it comes ashore. But we have no more authority than somebody else, except for rules and laws that we may have created in the country to own these animals. So that's a really important premise to work from. So I'm going to run through now what we can learn from stranded animals and how we sample to learn. How do we share the information from these data and samples? And then how can this information inform policy and conservation? Hopefully in 10 minutes. So I'll run through these really quickly, and I'm sure you're all familiar, but it depends who we are. Some of the information we can get are identifying new species of marine mammal. We can collect data and samples from them for life history, biology, ecology, and physiology studies. We can detect fisheries interactions or strikes from vessels and ships. By looking at their nutrition and their stomach contents, we can identify prey ships that are affecting the populations. And through sampling, we can identify novel pathogens, pathology, and toxins. And then even without sampling them, just looking at numbers, we can do some surveillance on stranding rates, which gives us some indication of these animals' distribution and how they shift with changes in environmental conditions. How we get this information is by doing post-mortem examinations, where we measure the animals, we take morphometrics, we take photographs, we examine organs and tissues. We can examine the gut contents, where not only can we look at what the animal was feeding, but we can identify plastics and nets that are important for management and protection. We can collect samples for parasitology, and then a suite of samples for health and disease investigations. But beyond the exam, we then have to distribute and analyze the sample. And we do this really for a number of reasons. One is to detect the cause of the stranding, for the samples to be used for histology, molecular biology, toxicology. And this is really standard veterinary medicine, wildlife medicine, adapted a little bit from domestic animals. But this is how we investigate disease. We can also archive the samples for future retrospective studies. And this is really important because these samples may be used years later for studies of genetics, toxicology, contaminants, etc. And then finally, and the part that often gets forgotten because it's the hardest and less dramatic, is a collation and interpretation of the data that we've collected. An interesting red line. So when we do the post-mortem, we always have a standard approach and have a form that we complete. We also have a list of samples to take, and then we know how we're going to store them, where they're going to get shipped, and how we're going to interpret these results for determining the cause of stranding. So this obviously involves paperwork. So on the left, here is our typical post-mortem form that we fill in at the Marine Mammal Center every time we necropsy an animal. And I think everybody has their own form. There are some examples on the Global Stranding Network website, but I think it's important that people adapt the forms to their own use because everyone works in a slightly different way and the conditions are different. But the essentials are the same, having a field number, information about the species, location, and then the list of tissues that you examine and sample. But also important is we usually have a marine mammal tissue request agreement filled out ahead of time by people who want samples from the animals and who we collaborate with. And this means that we know what samples to collect, also how to store them, and then how to ship them, and what's going to happen with those samples. And this prevents future discord over how the samples are used after the stranding event. So just to give some examples, here's myself on a blue whale, without a knife in this case. And in a case like this, we can get photographs, we can get skin that's used for genetics, toxicology, and genomic studies. We can collect an ear plug, a waxy plug from the ear of the whale that's used for aging. Blubber can be collected for nutrition and contaminants. Muscle samples are used for investigating diving physiology and toxicology. Liver also for toxicology and diet. Bones can be used for taxonomy, diet, and age. And then the GI contents we can get prey studies. So these are some examples of what we can collect. We also, I think it's really important before we sample the animal, is to look for signs of human interactions. And this is best done with photographs before opening up the animal or sampling it at all. And on the skin, we often see these examples of net interactions. This is an example here of a monofilament net around a dolphin's head on the far left. There are marks on the peduncle in the center. These are parallel cuts into the peduncle from a mesh of a net. And on the right, you can see linear lines from a monofilament line that's cut into the rostrum and the fluke of a small dolphin. In addition to photographs, just the history of how the animal stranded and the distribution of carcasses can also give insight to human interactions. We can collect these lesions, these marks, in formalin for future histology. And then looking at the intestinal stomach contents is also important because animals that are caught in nets often have full stomachs. And by looking at what's in the stomach, we get some indication of what fishery they may have interacted with. When we sample for disease things, it's a little bit more complex, and so it's best to work with someone who's trained with a vet. So we do, again, photographs of the whole body, but then examine all the organs and describe them, and collect a suite of different tissues in formalin for histology. We also collect tissues such as lymph nodes, liver, lung, kidney, both frozen and in culture media for infectious disease and toxicology studies. And these samples for health and disease investigations can really be used in an absolute variety of ways. Many laboratories, many veterinary schools, academic and government organizations can collaborate with you to investigate the disease and health of these animals. So here, we haven't got time to go into this in detail, but just as an example of the kind of information you could get from a fresh carcass. And the point here really is that it's a lot. The reality is we often don't have fresh carcasses. This is an example of a beaked whale that was code 3 to 4, meaning it was essentially decomposing, it was cooked, it had lost all its skin. So in this case, the only samples that were obtained were the skull and some skin for genetics. But even with these limited samples, these were sent to a laboratory that works on genetics of beaked whales, and they identified a new species from these samples. So this is really to illustrate that even in cases of decomposition, we can learn a lot about marine mammal biology. So how do we use this information? Well, ideally, the stranding data are published in the peer-reviewed literature, and then these papers that have been submitted for scientific publication can be sent to the government agency to keep them informed. And then once these papers are published, the media can amplify the information from these papers and also share this with the public. So once managers and policymakers have this information, they can take action to conserve marine mammal populations. In addition to this, the data that we generate from stranding can also evaluate the efficacy of these management actions. So for example, if we found a whale that was hit by a ship, we can publish information on the number of whales that were hit by ships in that area of California. The state of California can request ships to slow down in that area. And then we can look at whales after that event and see if there are fewer whales hit by ships because of that voluntary speed restriction. And there are examples of this working. And I think the most dramatic and the most well-known was in response to a series of mass strandings of beaked whales in the Canary Islands. And these beaked whales stranded very close to the veterinary school in Las Palmas. And here, Antonio Fernandez and his team did incredibly detailed necropsies. And they also had information on the distribution of the naval exercises. And they made a diagnosis. Sorry, yeah?
Can you just speak closer to your microphone?
Sure.
Sorry, yeah.
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 So and the team made a diagnosis of gas embolism in the beaked whales. And they also knew that in naval exercise. So this
I think the earlier one was better. This is not clear at all, I think.
This is worse?
Yeah, this is good. This is good. This is good.
Is this better like this?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. I've got two screens, so I think the microphone is picking up my laptop, and I'm looking at my bigger screen. So this led to a paper describing how exposure to noise disrupted private behavior, resulting in gas bubble disease. This information is controversial, but after that it was amplified in the newspapers, and since then the Canary government has banned NATO exercises in waters. I think this is a really good example of examining those policy.
Yeah, sadly, all of that was lost. Not sure why this. Maybe the earlier position was better. For some reason, that was all lost. Yeah.
You need me to say this all again, or can you read the slide?
No, you don't need to say it all again. You're good. Yeah. Maybe that's the
Anyway,
end.
yeah. And here's the example of ship strikes where we had these blue whales stranded in California. And this led to a publication. And then now there's a voluntary speed restriction in the waters of California when blue whales are in the area. So these are examples of basically what you can learn from strandings. The necropsy often takes many people. So you need collaboration for doing the necropsy. Here you can see a team of volunteers helping pull a whale up on the beach. And then I would say even more collaboration is needed for the publications. On the right is a paper describing death of sea lions in California for the first time after a harmful algal bloom. And this has 26 authors, and it took that number of people to piece together the story of what was happening with the sea lions, the algal bloom, the toxicology, and the other animals in the area. So finally, I say thank you again for letting me give you my view on the stranding network and what we can learn. And I look forward to learning more from you today as we have this panel.
Wow, that was really insightful. Participants, you can please drop in your questions for Francis and Vasudevan sir in the chat box. And also, may I please request whoever drew with the red line, can you erase the line? Because I'm unable to erase it. So yes. And now we have Pooja Mitra, who's an early career achiever in India's marine conservation world. Today, as the founder of conservation enterprise Terra Conscious, Mitra is creating a bridge between ethical boat operators and conscious tourists for a better understanding of marine life and dolphin watching. So, welcome, Pooja. Delighted you could join us today, and you may now take over.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Is this visible to everyone? Yeah, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you so much to Dipani and to Shara for organizing this and inviting me to be part of it. And it's been wonderful to hear Vasudevan sir and Francis speak of their experience and building, or rather taking off from where Francis ended about collaborative action being so important for stranding. I think that is exactly the spirit with which the Goa network was established in 2017. So the genesis of this network was basically a case that happened where a dwarf sperm whale washed up in a southern beach in Goa. Goa is a very small state. It's only 100 odd kilometers wide, but it is sort of known for tourism. So it does have lifeguards as a private agency contracted by the tourism government department deployed on all of its 38 beaches. So this case came up, and through sort of a very chaotic network, a tourist saw it, reported it to the lifeguard. She was a diver. She knew someone who was a scuba diver who knew that I worked for WWF at the time, the Goa office, and that we were doing some work on dolphin tourism. We were doing a study, and that's how we got to know. And at that time, the Konkan Cetacean Research Team that Vasudevan sir also referred to were visiting Goa. And in a great hurry, we tried to sort of get everyone together and go and try to help out with this case. Even the forest guard who responded didn't really have a backup system within the department at the time of what had to be done. And there was no veterinarian on site either at that point. But the team reached, and unfortunately, there was a lot of crowd, and because it's a busy beach and a lot of tourists, and the animal was released 2-3 times into the water and eventually passed away. And that entire situation made us realize that the lifeguards definitely needed support on the beach. They needed training. They needed to know what had to be done, and sort of a relay chain had to be created to ensure that the forest department also had support in addressing this, and that people, the public on the beach, also knew what was allowed and what wasn't allowed, since so many of these are protected species under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. So in 2017, with the assistance of IUCN India, we approached Dishti Marine, which is the private company which is on contract with Goa government to provide life-saving services. And we trained 500 plus lifeguards, the 80 forest guards, the beach cleaning staff, to actually follow some basic protocols till the forest department can arrive. And the flow is basically the patrolling lifeguard spots the incident, reports to his captain, who then reports on a WhatsApp group. We were acting as coordinator at the time and trainer. So we then would call the necessary person within the department and ensure that action was provided on time or as soon as we could. And also, this led to us dealing with a lot of cases on the ground where either a tourist or a resident who may not be aware of why certain protocols have to be followed might create conflict, might not let the lifeguard secure the animal or the carcass. And especially for live animals, there used to be a lot of pressure to push it back into the sea. This has improved over time, but this is something that regularly needs to be dealt with and needs a lot of supportive awareness. And then it goes to the forest department. Once they arrive on site, they decide what needs to be done with the case, and they will have a veterinary team assisting them, which in Goa's case is REFORT since 2021. So once we did this training, we did it annually because lifeguards also transition, new recruits are there, same for forest guards. So 17, 18, 19, it was done, 23, and 24 research also was part of it. When we began, we first did not have research on the scene. They were a veterinarian program, but we had thought at the time that the animal husbandry network, since that department has veterinarians deployed across the zones in Goa, we had thought that a trained vet in the vicinity of certain beach clusters would help in responding. And we had hoped that a collaborative system could be set up between Goa Forest and the then Animal Husbandry Department team. So a training was conducted. Dipani was also advising that. IUCN again supported this. And on cetaceans and turtles, a training was done. Dr. Sridhar from the Madras Veterinary College conducted, and Dr. Dinesh, I think, who's also on the panel today attending. And the veterinarians were very excited. A lot of them were very young, they're Goans. They were very interested to know more. But unfortunately, at the time, the leadership changed in the department, and this actually didn't move forward. And at the time, Shantanu and I were speaking, and they already had a program going in Karnataka. So we thought, why not? Because this was a very important piece, as we have seen from Francis's presentation as well, that the veterinarian data, the necropsies, all this had to be done. We could not just keep reporting without any insights as to why these cases were happening. We also prepared a lot of reports voluntarily, which we presented to the government. The second report, of course, had all partners contributing. And then we went on to advocate for a wider sensitization, because our learning from running this network for the last 7 years as a coordinator, as a trainer, is that you need a supportive ecosystem of stakeholders around, especially in places where the beach is a highly intense human activity space. In Goa, there's tourism, there's fishing, there's shacks, restaurants, water sport operators, dolphin watching boats. And you need this entire system along with local residents to be aware what is a network for stranding, why is it there, what are the protocols, and what support they can provide. And one of the unintended outcomes of this network, which is actually really great, is that Goa is known for olive ridley turtle nesting sites, and it has 4 designated official beaches. But thanks to the network being established, the lifeguards started reporting nesting from multiple beaches in Goa. Not only did this increase the number of nestings that were being counted, it also gave us an opportunity to see that so many shack owners, shack staff, local residents, local terrestrial rescuers who do snake rescue, etc., really pooling in resources and protecting the turtle while she was nesting. And that also added and showed us the benefit of having trained personnel on the ground, that knows what to do and is looking at the species through a multi-lens. So whether it was a nesting turtle or an injured turtle or a deceased turtle, all three were being reported. The same case in terms of an injured or deceased cetacean. And of late, it has even included seabirds. They also report terrestrial cases. We have seen increase in terrestrial snakes, jackals also reported, porcupine, crocodile sometimes. And this also helps us to understand how does the habitat changing, why are these animals showing up on the beach areas, what's happening around. And I think that's where layered data analysis can make such a difference, because we can really understand the big picture, what's going on, and that can inform better advocacy, or at least that's the hope. And like I mentioned, in 21, once research became part of the network, then the necropsies also were done more regularly. Treatment was done. They've had some successful releases. I'm sure they'll speak about that. But what we began to do as Terror Conscious is also to start reaching out to other operator communities. So these are dolphin watching operators in North Goa from some of the most highly dense areas, where there are almost 180 operators operating in one bay and all doing targeted dolphin watching, from 10-seater boats right up to 50-seater yachts, high-speed water sport boats that are parasailing boats coming in to show the humpback, Indian Ocean humpback dolphin, which, as most of y'all, I'm sure, in the audience and on the panel are aware, is a nearshore species. And therefore, it also gave us an opportunity to show them that with the standing data that was now being reported by this network, and regularly so, that the very species on which their livelihood is dependent is affected. And we really got a very positive response from the operators, because it really hit them that the animal suffers stress, the animal is coming up dead, the animal might have injuries, and it did make them think about their operations, how to sensitize. And in fact, the picture on top in the corner where you can see the boat operator seated, this association today has put up a dolphin information board on their own, and done it so that they can sensitize the visitors. We've helped them with the design, but they've printed it, they've installed it, because they see value in knowledge sharing and knowledge exchange. And I think that is the biggest contribution a standing network, of course, does, apart from responding to the case and building a system, keeping public health in mind, wildlife health in mind. But it also has this spillover effect in building more consensus, more ownership, more accountability for the space. And if it is done in an inclusive spirit, if we don't see it as something isolated only to veterinary action or first response, but we also see how it can apply to some of the drivers that might be causing this, and how can other stakeholder groups, which may not be the technical responders, but definitely have an impact and a stake in the ecosystem, in the species, how can they benefit from this knowledge? And I think that is something that we are really looking to explore. There's also an SOP that was created for the Goa Forest Department. Shantanu and myself had put it together. So these also incrementally have helped to build capacity. And today the Goa Forest Department has a deputy conservator marine. They have a marine squad that responds to these cases and coordinates with the veterinary team, with the lifeguards. And I think that has really come a long way from the first case that we were aware of. And one of the things that really helped us to look at this kind of capacity that's needed, or predictive thinking about where does the state need to bump up its response, where do we need more outreach, more engagement. And this was made possible by Technology for Wildlife. The founder, Shashank Srinivasan, unfortunately has passed away. He's a dear friend. But Shashank always felt that visualizing the data will make a big difference for people to understand the scale of this. And you can see the map of Goa in front of you, and you can see that the standing cases go right from the northernmost beach to the southernmost beach and all across. And Goa is slated to have a coal port expansion to 51 million tons of coal. It has tourism expansion, fishing expansion, construction. And when you really see the standing sort of spread out like this in front of you, and you can see how many cases are coming, it also helps the forest department, the various technical responders understand where do they need to have more presence, where could we expect more cases, so we need to be able to respond over there. And it also helps public understand that this is not an isolated issue. It is not in one or two areas. It is happening all across, and therefore the conservation strategy also has to be holistic. It has to look at the entire state coastline and not just specific sites. And the turtle nesting data, if we layer it on this, you will see that too is in all beaches, more or less, beyond the 4 designated sites. So it really changes this kind of information gathering and sharing. At least for me, in these 7 years, what I've learned is that it's totally changed my perspective towards how we look at this ecosystem management, and understanding that it is so diverse, but at the same time, sometimes driven by the same drivers, the same anthropogenic stressors, but also that the potential for collaborative action, given that this is a public private community enterprise. Today, we have lifeguards who are local, who want to be ocean ambassadors, they want to do outreach in their villages. There are shacks which are reaching out and saying that they would like to support, they would like to report and protect nests if that comes in front of them. They want signage for that. And I think that is the true success of collaborative action, that it should go beyond individuals or organizations or even state systems, and really become something that every citizen feels involved in, feels responsible for. And if you make this standing network something that is a way to learn more by sharing what we learn from it, then I think it can also help people understand how their actions are impacting these ecosystems and hopefully influence change. So I think as a coordinating or a founding member of this network today, we are looking at is building, that's the lifeguard agency is building their own capacity to coordinate internally. It has now become a mandatory part of the lifeguard training, with or without us doing it. And their trainers are trained now. And so every new batch also gets trained. And the forest department is also building up its engagement with it. So are other groups. Therefore, we also are expanding into looking at sensitizing the ecosystem around it, so that the technical responders can do their work efficiently and have local support. So that has been our learning so far, and looking forward to learning more and connecting with this network and the wonderful audience and panel more in the future. Thank you so much.
Wow, Pooja, that was that was really amazing, and I really loved your conclusion about the collaboration. And yes, we agree as well. Audience, please drop in your questions for Pooja in the chat box. We'll be answering them in the end. All right, now we have Shantanu Kalambi, a veterinary professional with extensive experience in various roles within the veterinary field. As a chief veterinarian at the Research Marine
So,
Corps.
so
Oh, sorry, we have.
with
Okay.
Suranjana, as Dr. Suranjana is chief veterinarian here.
Oh, okay, okay, fine,
I run the projects at Reforge.
Correct.
Should I dive
Yes,
right
yes,
in?
yes. Please do.
You all
Perfect.
can introduce yourselves now. It's fine.
So so I'm Shantanu. We're both veterinarians. I've been working with marine animals for a while now, since 2017. I did my marine biology back in New Zealand and then came back to India and studied veterinary medicine. Ever since 2014, we've been called in for a number of marine animal cases that had stranded on the coast, because I was working with the forest department at that point in time. And we've over time, about 2018 is when we started um, the Karnataka project. Let me just share this one.
Yeah. That's one, right?
Can everyone see this? Is this visible?
No.
Is the presentation visible?
No.
Um,
You did share screen.
I did.
Select window.
Can you see it? Yeah.
No?
Now, is it working?
No. No.
How about if you share the entire screen to see?
How do I do that?
Go back there.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay, don't worry. We're all on the same page, literally.
Your browser is preventing access. Why?
I'm just going to join in from another computer.
No worries.
No idea why this is happening.
Sorry, guys. So,
Should we go later and try and figure
does
this out?
someone else want to no, wait.
Okay.
This is opening.
Okay, fine. Huh. Oh.
Recording in progress.
Just mute that.
Oh, right.
So in the meantime, I just thought I'd ask something to is Vasudevan sir, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, Vasudevan sir, just in interest of just to tell all the young researchers and participants here, if you look at Francis' talk and your talk and Pooja's talk together, there are some things that our system needs a few shifts in. As you'll see, Pooja has spent a lot of energy in interpersonal stuff and ground level stuff and mobilizing people to be able to respond from a country as vast as ours, right? It's just not possible to do it any other way. And I remember the Maharashtra Forest Department had started giving licenses to the marine network you started in Bombay, just so that people are not stopped from the ones who are actually trying to do work are not stopped at the ground level. They, of course, will not do the necropsy, but at least they are allowed to collect out external information and have that saved at least. So that was a great move. But do you think that something like that, like look at the work that Frances and her teams and the other teams in America have done over time, and built this national network that is all collecting data at a standardized format, and then of course in the US, Francis, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a national coordinator, and we, even though we have those draft guidelines, we still don't have that national coordinator yet. And that could be a political thing because state level departments are different and all that. So our model is slightly different, Francis, because the way our state governments function is slightly different. So
Yes, and I don't.
yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't, not quite politically correct to say this, but it doesn't necessarily be an advantage to have a national coordinator. So the national coordinator is based in Washington, D.C., and is not connected locally. So although for issuing the permit, it's useful to have a person with a named permit that everyone else is covered by, I think the better responses come where there are local coordinators. So there's a national coordinator, and then there are regional coordinators, not by state, but by region. So Northwest, Southwest, Northeast, Southeast, and Hawaii. And so the variability in the responses are really driven by the local regional coordinators. So there's pros and cons. That the national coordinator, that does help sort of relay information up the government and back and help with permits. But the real strength comes, in my opinion, from the people on the ground. So, which is examples of getting the lifeguards excited, getting people on the ground. That I think is where you get the quality of the work coming is at the community level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a slightly different take on this. If I may reflect on things that happened or are happening. I think, of course, there is no for the local coordinators for the ground level action. But we often see that things that happen on the ground, even the positive initiatives that happen on the ground, are not reported at the national level or not taken notice of the national level. And sufficient funding or resources are not pooled for such an activity. So it would be good to have not only a national coordinator, not actually a good, a cell in the ministry entirely devoted for marine conservation. We are a long way from that. And it is absolutely necessary because the different states operate at different level. And unless there are some pioneers, who are pushing this at the state level, uh, this is not really going to, spread as a national movement. But these are no, I mean, these are animals which don't respect any boundaries or territories. So they move from one coast to another. So we have to, really record the presence of these animals at in the entire Indian coast. There has to be a national repository of all these, and resources have to be, pulled in for research and, for some monitoring of the activities and all the threat perception for various situations. So the national government must take care, because this is in the concurrent list. Conservation is in the concurrent list, and the national government does have a role in our country. And any local initiative, if it is good enough, must find a place in the national conservation agenda. For that, first thing is somebody to take notice of what is happening in the state, which is not happening today. So I think it makes sense to have, a national level coordinating body. It's not an individual, but it is a body to take care of, which can function as part of the Ministry of Environment and Forest.
That's great, sir. Yeah, I think we can continue this discussion once we are done with the
Yeah.
talks, because I'm also very
How do you put
interested
the
in
sound
that
on and off?
catch-22
Okay.
situation where, because the species is protected, and it's still dying, so then the government doesn't really want information to go out that it has died. So that is also happening in a few areas, but we can talk about that later. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Suranjana.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
you can see this now.
Yeah, it's visible.
So so what we're going so we sorry, get back into it. So we started this project in about 2018. Reefwatch is a very old organization, started in '94 by Mitali and Prahlad Kakkar, and Nayantara took over and started running the coral restoration project in the Andamans. I joined in about 2018 and set up the marine, the megafauna response system for Karnataka in about 2000, end of 2018. We're a small team. We're about, this is just 8 of us. This is the Goa team, but we have 4 more people from Karnataka. So the idea we started off with education, primarily doing awareness and education programs for schools and colleges. In 2000 and, I think in 17, after this conversation I had with Pooja, because of that dwarf sperm whale, the pygmy sperm whale that washed up in Goa, we realized that nowhere in the country were there any veterinarians doing very much work on specific primarily on marine animals. People were appointed by the forest department on contract sometimes, or they'd find the closest veterinarian. But it was very difficult for people to. It was very difficult for the forest department to find interested veterinarians who wanted to do this kind of work at that time. And also, a lot of these cases happened very remotely, all up and down the coast. So they weren't able to find veterinarians in those areas. And so we decided that we wanted to set up a veterinary team that was dedicated to marine animals. And in about 2018, we got our permissions to start in Karnataka. 21, we expanded to Goa with a collaboration with Drishti and Terra Conscious. So this presentation is mostly about Goa. We we recently did our RAC in Goa, so we're allowed to share our data now and talk about the work we've been doing. The Pani, you mentioned that it's been hard to talk about the kind of work we do because there has been resistance in the past, but now, considering we've been working with the department for a while now, we've worked around systems that, and we made sure that everything was done in a way that it was collaborative with the forest department. And, and so now we're finally able to do this and put this work and put the data that we've collected out there. And so we started up with in Karnataka, and we intend on working with veterinarians and training veterinarians and forest department staff up and down the coast. So in India, when we started, there was very little veterinary work being done on these animals. So initially, the first 1 year was me just handling all the cases in Karnataka, driving up and down, sniffing the air for dead animals, and eventually, every time I smell something dead, I'd go up onto the beach, find something dead, do a postmortem, report that to the forest department. The department, people on the ground didn't weren't very keen on reporting cases, and most animals were buried before we could even reach. Now, that's changed. Now we have veterinarians up and down the coast. We have about 4 vets who are handling cases up in Karnataka and Goa. And, there was not very much documentation at all about causes of death. And
there was no standardized system.
There were no standardized
The biggest
systems.
problem was, even if people were collecting data, it was not standardized, and it was not very usable data. So I think the real challenge for us was really one is standardized systems, standardized protocols, figure out easy ways to data collect on field, because field conditions are a whole nother ball game. So sorry, I'll give back.
So when we started up, we had about 150 cases reported in, and right now, so far in 2024, we've had about 440 cases reported. The cases that we've reported in, the number has gone up mostly because we've also started reporting seabirds that were being blown up on shore.
Blown up.
Washed up on shore and blown across, onto shore. Stranded on shore. We've had, about last year we had a dip in the numbers. There was also, that correlates to a dip in reported cases in North Goa at that point in time, and around Panjim. And but then in this year, we've, with once this RAC and once these permissions came through properly, and we managed, we formed a really good alliance with the forest department, and all these cases have started coming in. And we see a lot of cetaceans. We see a lot of mostly sea turtles. The number of seabirds has gone up. We have.
I think this year the number of everything went up.
The number of everything. I think in this year we had some 40 cases. More than 40. It's about 60 cases that happened in the last month and a half during the stranding season. And it has been quite insane.
Stressful for our team.
Yeah. So, Sue, do you want to talk about the strandings?
Yeah. So I mean, I think similar to what Dr. Gulad was saying, that the kind of things that that you all have seen, we see a lot of different reasons why these animals strand, and in fact, something that we really would like to do is really collate our data and hopefully make changes, collaborate with the systems and try and make changes, because so many of the causes of death are really anthropogenic, unfortunately. So
sorry, but this picture on the top, I'm not sure where this came from, but that was a propeller strike from that someone put in. But yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think over here, some of the causes of death that you can see, which are really common causes of death that we see, are respiratory issues. You're seeing net entanglements, huge. Karnataka mostly this year, almost all of the cases we got were net entanglement injuries. Propeller injuries and head trauma cases, one of the major leading causes of death with cetaceans that we've seen, and obviously net and parasites and that sort of thing.
Sorry.
Okay. So, I mean, I think one thing that I really would like to talk about here is just the fact that, even for us, it's been quite a learning experience. And every year it's been so much collaboration between different people and, getting information from different places and people. Because, I did my vet school in the UK. I moved back to India. I was primarily going to be working with stray dogs and cats, which was really my passion. And then, I kind of fell into this space because Shantanu was always very keen and, about this marine stranding project. And when he started it off, I remember he would call me and be like, I need veterinary help with this turtle which has this net injury. It needs care. I don't know what to do. Can you come and help? And I'd be like, okay, let's figure this out. And then I'd be speaking to vets from whoever I could find, and everyone was really helpful. But I think it's taken us, it's been a real project, like real evolution of treatment and standardizations that we've reached where we are today. And, I just wanted to go over, like, obviously, some of the major findings that we have been seeing over these past few years is, like I said, net entanglement is huge, which is why it's led us into the GhostNet project in Karnataka. Lung infections again. We see a lot of lung issues and buoyancy issues with sea turtles. These are mostly major findings with sea turtles because we deal a lot. We get like this year we had a lot of sea turtles coming up. So these are the major things that we deal with in terms of live strandings that are coming up with us. And buoyancy, intra-abdominal gas buildups. Buoyancy is a big issue, actually, which I think I will be talking about later, about why we really don't, we're not very pro-releasing turtles right away, because I think what happens a lot of the times is, when you see a sea turtle stranded in a net, the first instinct is to cut off the net and release it back into the sea. Now, unfortunately, these animals, we don't know how long they have been caught in the net. We don't know, what conditions, why they even ended up in the net. A lot of the times that could be one of the reasons, for their illness in the first place. And so when they are cut off the net and released back in the sea, buoyancy is a big issue. And when a sea turtle is buoyant, it's a very complex problem. It's never as simple as, it's a buoyancy equals this. It could be gastric, it could be foreign body, it could be infections, it could be anything, basically anything under the sun. So it needs a lot of diagnostics before you can, figure out why an animal is buoyant. And when an animal is buoyant, it basically means that this animal then cannot dive, cannot protect itself, cannot feed itself. And a lot of the times they will then wash up as a dead stranding with intra-abdominal hemorrhages, starvation, these kind of cases. So, one thing that I think that we've really found with our dead strandings, which I'll come to later, is that one of the leading causes of dead strandings, obviously other than, anthropomorphic major causes where they've washed up in GhostNet or they've been a boat hit, is, possibly improper release or illness and sickness.
So with our cetaceans, we see a lot of. Do you want to share that? How do you want to share that postmortem report?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just. I just want to give you guys. I don't know how we're going to do that because now it's like.
Sorry. We have a lot of screens and 2 computers, and we're trying to. Was it here?
Wait. Hold on. You take over, and I'll get it open.
Get out of this meeting from this side.
Sorry, just a sec, yeah?
It's not open.
No.
We'll share this anyway after, but
okay,
we can just talk about it for now.
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
So we started, until very recently, we weren't really opening up the head cavity, the brain, checking the brain for hemorrhages. We weren't able to in a lot of cases because we didn't have equipment.
No, and also, can I just say, I think one thing that we did was we were actually invited to that Dugong, the Dugong conference, by the Forest Department, and it was such a lovely conference actually, because one of the things we did was the postmortem of a large male dugong. And it was done by a group of vets, and so everybody was kind of, trying to figure it out and do it. And we finished the postmortem, and right at the end of the postmortem, one of the vets was like, I wonder what the brain of a dugong looks like. And it was literally that. And so we were like, yeah, okay, let's open it up. And so there are like 5 veterinarians like cutting open the head, and this whole time we did the postmortem of the dugong, nobody could figure out what was wrong with it. It had a gut full of food. It was super healthy. Fat was great. Body condition score amazing. It was an animal in the prime of its health. Really, it was such a sad thing to see.
But it had fluid in the lungs.
yeah, not much, but it wasn't like enough to say drowning, right? Because drowning is again a very difficult diagnosis to come up with a cause of death. So so anyway, we all the vets are opening the brain to see what the dugong's brain looks like, and suddenly we see huge hemorrhages across the head, and the conclusion was blunt force trauma. And after that, I remember I was like, blunt force trauma is going to be in every single postmortem check of ours, you know, whether whatever condition the animal comes up in, if it's, you know, if it's a score of 1, 2, or 3, we're going to definitely check the head, whether it's a sea turtle or cetacean or whatever. And it was astounding, actually, the number of, you know, head traumas and blunt force traumas we saw, especially with cetaceans and especially with finless porpoises. You know, so I think that is definitely call for some sort of some sort of change in policy for our coastline.
But we've also found a lot of net in stomachs, you know, like where the entire stomach is filled with balls of like bezoars of net.
Generally with the humpbacks.
With the humpback dolphins. Yeah. We've seen internal parasites. The picture at the bottom here is a tapeworm that was about 14 feet long. We've also seen signs of viral infections, but we've never been able to identify what virus it was.
Yeah, unfortunately, like, so we've been taking samples for everything, but unfortunately, we don't have any labs that we can send it to, which is really heartbreaking because there's so much stuff that we want to figure out. You know, there's so much stuff that we would love to send and get readings back on, but we've not found a lab that is you know, equipped to run.
Viruses.
Yeah.
That because what we are suspecting are things like canine distemper and parvovirus, but then the tests that you use for dogs don't work on these cetaceans and haven't worked. I don't know whether
it's
because
not canine distemper, but distemper.
But distemper in general. But we've not, even when the animals come up, they're very decomposed, and so that could be one of the reasons.
Sometimes they're not, and sometimes it would be great to be able to do that, but unfortunately, yeah, we've not been able to do that.
And so we've released quite a few animals, birds, sea turtles. We've never had a live stranding of a cetacean that's survived long enough to release. I think the closest was the longest an animal that came in was a finless porpoise.
Just the one that came in like
month.
Last 2 months.
And when it came in, after it died, when we did the postmortems, we found that it had been most likely attacked by humpback dolphins.
It had such major trauma, that poor thing. Like, I don't even know how it managed to survive. It had like ecchymosis all around the side of its ribs. The lung was tossed. You know, there was a lot of bruising.
And so we work with veterinary clinics up and down the coast where we take, you know, we use their facilities for blood testing, for X-rays, but we've been, you know, and so we've tied up with a lot of people around, but we don't have all the equipment we need, and ideally that's something we're trying to get one day. In our so most likely fish. So we see a lot of fishing-related drowning cases. This is mostly with sea turtles, lung infections and pneumonia, mostly because they've been entangled in fish net or ghost net, and then they drown. And a lot of these animals we've seen in Karnataka that were released. They used to wash up a little further down the coast within about a week, which is why we recommend don't release them without a veterinary check. In the last 3 years, a lot of our a lot of the cases that were coming in live weren't responding to antibiotic treatment. So we started doing antibiotic resistance tests, which where we built our own setup to be able to do this. Earlier on, we were sending them the samples to Bombay, and by the time the results came in was 15 to 20 days, and the animals had already died. So now we're doing this in-house, and we found that in most of our sea turtle and seabird cases, they're resistant to almost every known antibiotic, which is a big cause of concern.
Yeah.
And so that's us. Thank you. And if there's any questions, and we've been talking about our data and sharing our data. So the thing is that we've had a bit of resistance from the forest department about sharing our data. Like Dipani, you mentioned that we didn't want to talk about dead animals being reported, but now I think that's changed. I think the the attitude is slowly changing, and so now we've been allowed to talk about it and release some papers which hopefully will be approved very shortly.
Maybe I'm just gonna try and show you guys one of our postmortem reports for a cetacean, just so you guys have an idea of how we collect our data. So just give me a second.
Just to let everyone know that the Zoom call is till 9:45.
Sorry. Okay.
So we should.
Okay, we're done.
We can share
we
this.
can do it later. Yeah.
Oh, you can show your screen if you want to.
Okay. Okay. Now.
Okay.
So now we've got a very standardized way of collecting data. Because obviously we want to make the data usable. And so we've got, we had our tech teams come in and set up Google Forms so that it's everything that comes out is collected in the way that we wanted to, in the units that we wanted to, in the in the standardized format collection that we wanted it to be collected on. So are you all able to see this form? This is just one of the reports that was generated.
Not yet.
Just scroll back up. It's going too fast.
Oh, it's going too fast. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I can't see anything. Yeah.
Sorry. Now?
Can you all see this?
My screen just says has started sharing screen.
It just says double.
I think let's just
Let's double click
this with you guys for later.
Yeah, let's
leave
it for a bit later.
Yeah,
it's taking a little while.
We'll move on.
But
yeah.
So.
All right. Yes. Thank you, Shantanu and Saranjana. We learned so much from the both of you. Thank you for sharing your experience and your research findings with us. We now have our last panelist, Dr. Andrew Brownlaw, who has headed up the strandings team since 2009. As a veterinary pathologist, he undertakes most of the post-mortem examinations and has an oversight for data collection, management, and reporting. Welcome, Andrew. Very delighted to have you with us today. You may now please begin your talk. Andrew?
Should I WhatsApp him?
Yeah.
Can you allow me to unmute? Sorry, 1 second. Should 1 second. Sorry, Andrew, I thought I'd made you a co-host from the start, and I don't know how that changed.
That's okay. Hello, everybody. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this. It's a great honor to talk to you guys, and I've learned so much already about your various networks. It's really amazing what you guys have been doing. I should probably introduce a little bit more about myself. I'm a vet by training, but I've been running the stranding scheme in Scotland since 2009. But aside from that, I work at the University of Glasgow, and we also have a project that looks at both strandings and fisheries interaction, particularly things like marine mammal entanglement and ways of being able to deal with that. And potentially relevance at the moment is, as Francis sort of mentioned, we're also on the Global Stranding Network panel, but I'm also currently the chair of the International Whaling Commission's expert panel for strandings. So hopefully, if there's anything that I can talk to you guys about from either of those things, then I'll also try and do that. I have a few slides about the project that we have in Scotland, which I can share with you if it will allow me to do that. Can you see this? Is this?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, I'll just see if it can do. Is that now full screen, or are you still on?
Full screen now.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, so this is a brief sort of go through about sort of some of the cases that we have up in Scotland, and effectively what I thought might be helpful is to just go through how we run our network up here, and potentially, if there's time, I can talk to you a little bit about one particular case that we had, which was a mass stranding of pilot whales, which hopefully illustrates some of the reasons why stranding networks and the data that you can collect from them can be so useful. So yeah, as Francis said from the top, why do we bother investigating stranding? So I mean, to sort of reiterate what's been gone over already, the marine environment is kind of a difficult place to monitor, out of sight and out of mind, and there's an increasing awareness that we need to be better at understanding the threats and pressures to these ecosystems to be able to make better decisions about how we manage our interaction with these environments and to inform policy. There's a big social drive for that because these are kind of charismatic megafauna, so people kind of care about what happens when you have a stranding event. And the advantage, if you like, of looking at marine strandings is that they are a good early warning system of wider ecological problems. They may be the first to show signs of illness, disease, pollution, disease, and sort of general issues that are impacting the marine ecosystem as a whole. So the fact that they're sort of representative of the at-sea population makes it kind of, if you want to kind of try and find a way of understanding what is otherwise quite a difficult environment to look at, then that's not a totally stupid way of being able to do so. So in terms of in Scotland, the other main driver that we have is that there's a big legislative requirement to doing this. Everything above that is sort of the nice to haves. They're good reasons to do it. They make scientific sense. They provide good data, but effectively, without the legislative drivers, that's the reason that we do this monitoring. It's because the UK and Scottish governments have signed up to a number of different agreements and processes that make it imperative for them to be able to understand what's going on in the marine environment, and they've chosen strandings as a way of doing that. So let's see if I can move forward. There we are. So in terms of, what can investigating the dead tell us about the living? So we've sort of gone over this quite a lot, but it is probably worth reiterating. There's a number of things that you can find out from the process of doing the pathology, basic things such as cause of death, but also understanding burden of disease, health, age, life history metrics, reproductive metrics, pollution. And if these can be integrated and collated and interpreted in a particular way, then you've got really powerful data sets there. Our scheme in Scotland has been operating since the early 1990s. We collate all reports of marine animal strandings, and from live animal strandings to something which is almost unidentifiable without genetics as a pile of bones. We run a pathology service, so I do most of the postmortems on these cases. We have a data set of about just over 16,000 marine stranding cases. We've done about 2,500 necropsies with a systematic standardized approach to them. And we've had about 1,500 cases that we've sampled through our volunteer network, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a moment. And they cover a variety of different species. The majority of them are cetaceans, but we also have seals, a few marine turtles, and a few shark as well. So citizen science is a really important part of what we do. We have if you sort of stretched it out, the coastline of Scotland is about 10,000 miles long, and there's only 3 of us that work on the project. So we need to have volunteers to sort of be our eyes and ears, and sometimes our feet and hands at a distance. And we do that by running a volunteer network which operates all around the coastline. As you guys have sort of highlighted earlier on, effort and mobile phone use has meant that people are reporting stuff in a lot more frequently. Mobile phone use has massively changed how we operate. We're getting things reported in a lot quicker. We get better quality of data. We can almost sort of iteratively talk to people on the beach about how to sample things, whatever. So it's been a real change of how we collect the data. We run, as most places do, WhatsApp groups, which run our citizen science groups. They help build kind of sense of community, people that are being sent out to go and collect data, photographs or samples, communicate with each other through these WhatsApp groups, which means that it keeps them sort of engaged. It also keeps them safe because they make sure that they go out with somebody else. The volunteer network, we've run it for about 10 years. It's not without its issues. There's a big issue with retention. We train a lot of people up, and sometimes that's the last we see of them. Sometimes they're brilliant. You never know. And what we have learned is that the feedback from our feeding stuff back to volunteers is absolutely essential. We need, if somebody goes out to collect some data and samples, we make sure that we give them as much information as we have about the analytical tests that have happened down the line. We have an annual forum where people are invited to somewhere where we have a day of talks and presentations and workshops and what have you, which mean that people feel engaged. So it's made a big difference to the data and quality that we've taken, but you do have to, it does require, as you will appreciate, quite a lot of information to manage. In terms of the data that we have, there's obviously the nature of a single stranding gives you these long-term stranding data sets, and we've spent quite a bit of time trying to build and collate and tidy up our data sets so that they make sense, they can be interrogated online. A lot of this data is available. That helps with the engagement aspect, but it also helps with the subsequent analysis of being able to understand mortality events and contextualize them in the wider sense of how mortalities are happening, what is unusual, what time of year should we be seeing these strandings, what indications do we have that there is something abnormal happening in terms of the magnitude or the distribution or the nature of the stranding events. As Francis was saying, you can collect a huge number of samples from this, and that is vital for a load of ancillary tests. Some of them go into the freezer and wait for projects down the line. Some of them we analyze there and then. And then obviously we take basic measurements of morphometrics, and a subset of these we take to necropsy to understand the cause of death. So when we've taken them to necropsy, we have a standardized protocol, and the GSN is full of different protocols. We use one that we developed a few years ago to mean that the data that's collected across Europe is pretty much the same. So we worked with our colleagues in the Netherlands and in Italy to pull together a standardized European-wide protocol. It's pretty much the same as is used elsewhere in the world. We focus on understanding the carcass condition, as in how decomposed a carcass is, but also things such as nutritional condition and blubber thickness, because those are really good indicators we find in terms of being able to direct you towards what might be potential causes of death. Obviously, animals in good body condition that have been recently feeding, you're more likely to look at an acute cause of death than something that's been debilitated and spent a long time being ill. And in terms of the cause of death, we focused a lot on, in many cases, we might know, in some cases you don't, and determining what the cause of death is helpful, but increasingly we're finding that working out what hasn't caused it is as important, if not more important. So being able to rule things out, particularly being able to rule out evidence for, as they were saying previously, for blunt force trauma that may be indication of human interactions, or in our case, we get a lot of harbor porpoise that get beaten up by bottlenose dolphins. So we want to try and not only rule things in, but also try and rule out what hasn't been the cause for these strandings. We have a ton of data, as everybody does. It's been moved from a spreadsheet, which is difficult to use and kind of unreliable, to an online system. And we have freezer archives, which we make available to researchers globally. And the arrangement that we have in Scotland is that people are allowed to request data. We send it to them essentially for free. We sometimes ask for contributions to postage, but they get the samples. We don't charge for the samples, but we do request that we have an opportunity to be involved with the analysis and be that get the data back in short time. So that we can use it for our analysis, or sometimes it's about being part of a subsequent publication or some form of output that comes from that. In terms of the mass stranding events, these are sort of bizarre examples of everything that we've just been talking about, but they're condensed in time and space into very particular and slightly acute events. And I'm just going to very briefly talk to you about one of these mass stranding events. This happened a year or so ago on the Isle of Lewis. It's a very remote area. This is summer, not that you'd know that. It just looks that's a typical summer day on the Lewis. It's cold, it's windy, it's wet, it's difficult for people to get there. And the event that we had, that audio's got a bit loud. Apologies for that. You just might have to see that one again. So these are cases that have been live stranded, and you've got issues to manage with both the live animal response, so how you deal with that from a welfare point of view, what equipment you can get, how it's been possible to keep people safe who want to try and respond to this, what kind of euthanasia options are available. There's a whole ton of things that you need to consider for that, all against a backdrop of time, because obviously this is time critical from both a welfare and a live animal point of view, but also from the point of view of trying to get decent information samples from these cases. In terms of how we approach these cases, we've learned that it's important for us to understand the question that we're being asked, and this is a kind of a cartoon of the various different pressures that we have on a mass stranding response. There's the welfare aspect for any live animal cases and public safety that goes through all of that, but we're often trying to understand the scientific reasons for this stranding event. But there's also a strong media presence and a big political influence in that as well. And we've learned that we have to try and be clear at the start about what are the drivers for these investigations, why are we trying to investigate this, and what do we hope to use the information that we can gain from the investigations for. We have a number of different things that we collected from this mass stranding event. So everything from immediate photographs, blubber thickness, weight where we could, measurements, to questions on life history. So the reproductive status of these animals, the feeding ecology, what they'd been eating on, what they've been feeding on, and then a number of different, and the teeth for being able to understand the age. And then questions on actually what might be infectious disease process. So we collected data for toxicology, for bacteriology, and histopathology as a standard. Some of these get stored, some of these get analysed immediately, dependent on funding and dependent, as I said before, on the questions that are being asked. We found that the advantage of long-term data sets is that you can contextualize these individual strandings. So in the case of this stranding event, we were able to show that both in terms of mass strandings, not only in Scotland are we seeing them happening more often, but when they do happen, they involve a larger number of animals. So that helps as an immediate communication to policy to try and encourage them to support the investigations that need to come. It means you've got something to be able to give the politicians so that they have some information at the point at which they're going to need it to put out some press release or something. We're also, because of these long-term data sets, able to look at the context of when these animals strand. So, this is a Rose diagram that was just done very quickly, but it shows pretty obviously that most of these stranding events happen in the month of July. This is a bad time to go on holiday if you're working for the Strandings project in Scotland. The body condition assessment, again, is a very quick and easy thing to do. All you really need is a tape measure to be able to do this. It's simply a difference between girth and length. If you plot this on a graph, as we've done here, the black dots there show the pilot whales that we've had throughout the 30 years of the project, and the blue dots that we see are the ones from this particular stranding event. So if they're above the line, you can see that they're in better condition than on average. And it's a really crude assessment, but it's a really good piece of being able to assess whether or not these animals were generally diseased. If they're above the line, they're probably in better condition. So it helps you sort of, without really spending much time or effort on the analysis, you can begin to think about which direction you want to go down in terms of subsequent sort of investment of energy, resources, and of course money to try and work out what's been going on in these situations. Those red dots are actually another mass stranding event that we had just this last year, and again, these were generally healthier. And finally, I just want to sort of talk about, you asked to sort of some context of what else you can kind of learn, some of the new tools that we've been looking at, and we've developed some good collaborations with people to look at stable isotopes. These are fantastic tools to be able to understand feeding ecology. If you look at different tissues, you can tell not only what they've been feeding on, but also potentially where they've been feeding. And because the isotope signature is coded in tissues at different times, so liver codes the ingested food over the last few sort of couple of weeks. Skin is 4 to 6 weeks, and muscle is much longer than that. So these are tools. They're not foolproof, but they're good tools to be able to understand sort of questions on feeding ecology. The genetic analysis, as we've all mentioned, this is increasingly powerful tools. They can use tiny amounts of tissue. They're easy-ish to be able to ship and get sequenced. And the metagenomics that you can do from that, bioinformatics is getting cheaper. It's getting easier to be able to build up patterns of sort of kinship analysis and how these pods relate to each other, which can also help with understanding the potential causal natures for these stranding events. We've done some work with proteomics recently, which is new and is developing. These all sound sort of sci-fi, but they're really quite simple. They can use very basic amounts of tissues to help understand questions on metabolism. And the point I want to make here is that these are all collaborations. We're a small team of 3 people. We can't do this without the help of a really huge number of people that help with our analysis, with our data collection, collation, interpretation. The impact of noise, this is another thing that is coming to the fore with a lot of these cases. These are very difficult things to be able to understand well, but again, we've got some excellent collaborations with colleagues in Germany that can help with understanding the impact of underwater noise. So that's basically it. This is just a quick plug for the Stranding Initiative and the Global Stranding Network. Both of those are Googleable. If there's elements of that would be that the expert panel or the GSN can help, then please get in touch. And as Francis said, we're trying to make the website on the Global Stranding Networks useful to people. So if you have time to have a look at this and send some feedback about what would be helpful for you guys, what information would be most useful to sort of bring to the fore, then we'd really like to hear from you from that point of view. And yeah, that's about it. So I think the last slide is that, our summary of this is that our global oceans are changing. I don't think there's any question about that. And in order to understand what that change is looking like, it needs a village to respond to these stranding events. You need a huge number of different people with different experiences, skills, and technologies to be able to really fully maximize the potential that these events offer. Some are very simple data collection exercises, and others, such as these mass strandings, can be complex actually quite traumatic situations that have a very clear societal impact, and that drives the desire to understand what happened in those cases. Yeah, definitive answers, they're often unlikely in most of these cases. You're dealing with probability, but by doing robust analysis, by having good data sets and managing to sort of rule things out as much as ruling things in, you can make kind of really good progress to this. And yeah, that's about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. If you don't mind, could you just drop the website in the chat box that you were mentioning?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. All right. So we have one question for you. Were you able to know the cause for the mass stranding where the live animal sent in, and did they restrand? From Dr. Raja.
So did we know the cause of the mass running? That's that's kind of probably another talk. The short answer is yes. We came out with the reason why they died. We have some suspicion for why it is that they stranded. We know that they were healthy animals, that one of them had a dystocia. So because they're pilot whales, they tend to have these social behaviors where they will aggregate around they form a cluster around an animal that is in distress. That seemed to happen in a slightly unfortunate place. It was a beach that was very shallow, a beach that had a lot of particulate matter in the water, and it had an onshore wind. So that was sort of a perfect storm of literally of things that sort of came together. What we're not clear on, and we probably never will be clear on, is why it was these animals were where they were. Pilot whales in Scotland are an offshore species. They're not unheard of seeing around the coast, but it's an unusual place for them to be. So we're in the process, and this is where this is why we did a lot of the sort of the life history work to try and better understand their feeding ecology, because we wanted to know whether or not they'd come into these inshore waters to feed, or whether or not they'd been sort of pushed in and displaced in due to some form of disturbance. And when you're thinking about disturbance, one of the things that everyone kind of jumps to is anthropogenic disturbance and things like underwater noise. As you know, it's not just sort of sonar; it's also all the other sort of insonification that goes on out there. So yeah, that's a sort of a very clumsy answer to quite a complex analysis, but yes, we have some ideas. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. And did they restrand? Is what
They all died. We refloated one of them, but you might have seen from the video is the weather was too bad to be able to safely put people out into the water. So the only mechanism for being able to put we tried to put two animals back out. One immediately came back in again. One of them disappeared off. So I suppose, yeah, that one survived. But everything else, we made a decision to euthanize it because they'd been on the beach for too long, and from a welfare point of view, it wasn't likely that they were, even if they were back in the water, that the processes of the stranding had generated too much damage for them to be viable.
That's sad. All right, thank you so much. Now, those of you who want to ask questions, please raise your hand and we can unmute you.
No. I have a question. Well, mostly to Suranjana, Shantanu, and there are quite a few other people here who are running their own local networks in Maharashtra, and I think there's some people from Tamil Nadu perhaps also. I feel like after we have listened to Francis and Andrew, there is so much potential in every stranded animal that we find along the coast of India. And so what can be done differently, or what needs to be done? Is it our relationship perhaps with the forest departments that need to change so that we can collect far more knowledge from every dead animal? Because that is one thing. But I mean, I would ask maybe Suranjana and Shantanu, what do you all feel? Or Pooja, what do you feel? Vasudevan sir, Shaunok is here probably, who deals with the Bombay network. What do you all feel needs to be done differently, or what relationships do we need to build so that knowledge building
Yeah.
or conservation problems can be dealt with in a more informed way?
So for us, primarily, it's taken many, many years to kind of get the systems in place where we could handle these animals without, any fallout, without problems with the department. Having the department report in these cases, it's always been, for us, it's been working from the ground up. And these policies that are being placed, there has been directives by the central government to start marine cells for each forest department, but there's not been really very much to go on under that. The thing, it's just been said that hey, you need to start a marine cell, but then how do
I
I
also
explain?
think, okay, so I
You know,
think one
as
thing that's
veterinarians, we're not really given. There's no real scope of work for veterinarians in there. It's not really been described as one of the things that is necessary to be done, and unless that structure comes in place before it's sent out to the government, to the state forest departments, nothing's going to change very much, or it'll take a lot longer than it should.
I mean, one thing that I would say is that a few things that we need to do is number one, obviously, have the forest department be more open to reporting these cases. Number two is the biggest problem is that the people in the department or the people that they can call on are very apprehensive because they don't have mentorship or they've never done this before. So they don't know what to do, they don't know how to collect, they don't know how to open it up, they're worried. So this whole idea of like just being able to be on the phone with somebody who knows what they're doing. I mean, we've seen with Gujarat, there have been cases where people have just called us. They'd be like, "Can you identify this species of tortoise?" It's like it's just a question of
Sure.
opening lines of communication. That was a tortoise, but
Yeah.
they thought it was a sea turtle. But so it's just keeping lines of communication open, just creating a thing where people can access, experts in the field, just so it's not scary and it's not so unknown. At this point, it's just so unknown. I mean, I feel like the departments also are kind of like we have so much to deal with. We don't even want to look at another thing that we have to deal with. So just kind of making it easier and more approachable in that sense.
So I wonder in that
I'll
case,
add to that if I can, Dipani. So one of the things I think from the Goa example that would bear some investigation into looking at it in different states is also which departments have different power centers in states, depending on what the scale of the state is, what the department actually plays the role in the state. And sometimes it's not the most obvious department that you think might have influence in the space to actually set up this infrastructure. In Goa, one of the big apprehensions to share standing data is how will it impact tourism? Does it change what rules come in, what happens to how the water sports are managed, the shacks are managed? Will it give a bad impression of the destinations, or will it affect footfalls? And in general, nobody wants to talk about negative things when it comes to a destination that you want people to come to. So one of the things over there I feel is also thinking about who is influencing these departments. Is it the voters? Is it the local industry bodies? Is it the various associations? And I think when we traditionally think of standing response, of course, it has the technical layout, who's responding to it, who's the nodal agency, who's the vet involved, and all of that. But once this analysis is available, as Suranjana and Shantanu said, that now they're able to share it, the next step is, of course, demystifying it in a way that you can actually help another department understand how to apply it. That if I'm saying I've got viral infection, I'm not saying that the waters of Goa are unsafe. Because that immediately is how it gets spun. That, oh, you can't swim here, it's not a great destination, animals are dying, that affects your footfall. So it really then starts closing the mindset to improving the way we deal with it. So I think really looking at how can we customize the way we analyze it, depending on which stakeholder. When I say customize, I mean in its analysis to different stakeholders. I think it is important to recognize where their fears are coming from. For a dolphin boat operator, it might be that will my boat operations get affected? Will I not be able to run trips? Will I be told to do less of them? And these are some of the questions that come up from them when we talk to them. And I think a lot of this is about, as Ranja said, the communication, but it's also about how you communicate these issues to all these different people who have very real economic stake or social stake in that space. And I think there, as Andrew pointed out, it's a village. You need everybody to buy into this, apart from the ones that are legally designated to do it. And if that doesn't happen, over time, even the standing itself will start to be seen as a problem. Like we had some shacks tell us, we don't want to report dead turtles or dead dolphins because it's showing us in a bad light. People will think our shack is not good, etc. So, you don't know how people perceive this reporting to be. And I think that, again, a lot of this is just perception of what data means and how it can be used. And I think that needs a lot more dialogue at various levels.
I mean, I think Deepani, just carrying on from the question you've put here, if we as a community should approach the MOEF, I 100% think so. And I feel like the kind of data that we've collected, as a group, just from, like a state like Goa and Karnataka, put together, I think should drive this initiative across all the different states. And I know that the states are interested. Like, Orissa is really keen. Maharashtra is keen. The thing, I think it's just a question of really working together, having a standardized approach, and being approachable. I think these are the key points right now.
Vasudevan sir, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Devani.
Not
It's a
trying
very interesting.
to corner you, but just wanting to know how you feel the ministry or our system might respond to a community like ours who wants to do.
It's a very interesting dialogue. And if you look at the National Wildlife Action Plan, which is in force from 2016 to 31, there's a special chapter for marine conservation. And that is specifically mentioned that each coastal state must have its own coastal ecosystem cell, and which was to be actually accomplished by 2018. But there is no movement forward in that, except that Maharashtra had already created this mangrove cell. And other states, there is a lot of talk about this. Now, I have gone to many states and explained what mangrove cell is doing. They all got excited, but nothing much happened after that. So somewhere something is lacking, even though it is written in the National Wildlife Action Plan. I think with a little, I think even the ministry may not be aware that this fine print it is written. Somebody has to sensitize the Ministry of Environment and Forest that there is this need that there has to be an institutional body at the state level looking purely into marine conservation, coastal and marine biodiversity. And in that, I mean, it can take a whole gamut of issues involved, including the stranding aspect that we are talking about. There is, a certain reluctance on the part of the forest department, primarily because as foresters, we are not trained to handle these situations. Our job is completely different. We come in because there is this Wildlife Act which actually is administered by us, and there is no other agency which can do it. So if we have to do it, let us do it in a better way by equipping ourselves with better knowledge, interacting with the community that knows things, and also as far as all these involvement of veterinarians are concerned. I think it will be a good idea to have a panel of experts who can actually, whenever there is a stranding, they can simply go and take samples or do postmortem without waiting for the permission to come every single time. That can be a way forward. So ultimately, the resources are mostly with the government of India. Many of the states don't have that resources, except maybe Maharashtra has built a huge corpus now that they can handle things on their own. So other states don't have that kind of resources. So it will be good to have a sensitization of the Ministry of Environment and Forest. The other day I was reading a report that in terms of the protected area networks and the marine and the general conservation, we are lagging behind. We are many places down in the order because our efforts in marine conservation is practically zero. So that is where, as a nation, we have to improve and show better results. Although on terrestrial side, we are on very, very robust grounds. This is where the huge gap is there. So there is a lot to do, and the ministry can really, do very well to take this aspect into consideration.
Well,
Thank you.
maybe we can take you can lead us to the ministry. Maybe we can work separately on to approach the ministry.
I'll be glad, but I'm a retired man now.
That's all right.
But I'll be glad if whatever help I can do, I'll be absolutely glad to do that.
Thank you so much, sir.
I think Dr. Dinesh wants to say something, and then Ashwin is asking, do we need any sort of permissions from the government bodies to build up a stranding network among the fishing community? Does somebody want to answer that, or should I? Pooja, you want to say? From what I know, Ashwin, if he's still here, is that to build up
There
a
is,
stranding network of research. So go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
if I may add,
Yeah.
if I may contribute to that, there is no requirement of a permission to create a standing network. The thing is, when you go there, when you handle an animal which is in the Wildlife Act, as a protected species, then there are restrictions. It's always important to work with the forest department. But then the network will be very effective, even for useful for the forest department, because they are the people who will be reaching first. They'll have their own network of information, which will be very, very useful to the forest department. So unless you work with the forest department, nothing can be achieved. But there is no permission to create a network. But once you create a network, if it is with the blessings of the forest department, absolutely fine. Even without that, if you have created network and are able to convince, you are able to convince the forest department that this network will serve and will have some utility for the forest department itself, then they will be happy to cooperate.
So I was just going to add a point here. One of the things that we've seen with veterinarians across the country is a reluctance to handle cases of marine stranding and wildlife cases in general. But, we've been talking to lawyers now for the last 5 years. Technically, based on the Constitution of India, you are protected because you are allowed legally to help out and rescue any animal. Whether it is a dog or a cat or a wild animal, it doesn't matter. You are protected by the Supreme Court will take will back you up. And it's something that, we've had a lot of resistance in the past about this. But legally, as a veterinarian, I don't know about in the general public whether that works, but as veterinarians, you are protected by the Constitution and to help out, whether it's starting a stranding, whether it's attending to an animal, whether it's even doing a postmortem. Legally, you are allowed to do it. The states have put in additional the things about saying that you aren't supposed to do it, but eventually this is going to be contested. But it's in our duties and responsibilities, that we have to do. You have to be able to help out. So just
We don't have much time left, but do the panelists want to say anything before the Zoom call? This is the first time I'm doing this in my entire life, so I don't know when the call
I
shuts down.
think Dr. Dinesh has been waiting to say something.
But otherwise, if Francis and Andrew also feel free, the rest of us have each other to talk to all the time, anyways.
Yeah.
Dr. Dinesh? Dr. Dinesh,
I think he's not with us yet.
Can I just quickly say that I loved it was a great discussion. Thank you, Dipani, for organizing it, and I would love to be in touch with Dr. Andrew and Dr. Francis. It's and I'm from the University of Glasgow, Dr. Andrew. When I saw that you were that you're from there as well, I was like, I have to tell him. It's like I did my vet school there, so I mean we should totally get in touch for sure. I will get in touch.
I think just a thought for me is that
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think it's really important not to be intimidated by the idea of a stranding network. Like, how do we create one? What do we do? A network is really all human beings, working together towards a common goal. And in my experience, it does take both, government from the top and then the community from the ground coming together and working towards something. And it's an organic process. Sometimes I wonder about, we talk about training workshops, and to me, a training workshop often isn't about imparting information. It's usually a shared experience. So any workshop I've been to with somebody, even if I didn't learn anything from the training materials, I've got to know the other people at the workshop. And it's been a really good way to build a network. So that might be something to think about, is you don't know who's training who about what, but it can be feedback to the community. It can be engaging government officials who don't really know what you do. You can invite people who might be funders. It's a way, it can be about examining an animal and what can you learn from it, but it can also be about network building. So I think some of these on-hand workshops where you get together, even this is helpful. So now I've got to meet some new people and we'll stay in touch. But in-person workshops where you spend the day together, you have a meal together, you talk, can be really helpful.
Andrew, you want to say anything, or you're just going to type? Or Dr. Dinesh is here. We cannot hear you, Dr. Dinesh.
Dr. Dinesh cannot unmute, I think.
He's
But he
not.
has done wonderful work in the northern part of Maharashtra, trying to rescue injured turtles. I worked with him and found his work very, very impressive. Unfortunately, he can't speak today, but maybe some other time, he will have a lot to talk about. He may not. He will require maybe a fun full hour to explain his work.
I don't know. I've added him as a co-host, so it should naturally unmute itself. But I'm not sure why it's not working. So sorry, Dr. Dinesh. Do you want to type something in the text box? All right. Andrew, you've got your hand raised for a while now. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, just really to just thank you for this opportunity to sort of to meet you all. And as Francis sort of says, this is, the value of these is the beginning of a conversation between the groups. That's where you can exchange ideas, kind of put case studies together. Those we find are incredibly helpful. You just knowing who is out there, who you can get in touch with for very specific cases, because protocols are fine, but they never tend to survive actually the reality of what you're dealing with. So I put my email into the chat. If anyone wants to get in touch, that would be great. If you have questions about the GSN or the IWC, then reach out to Francis or myself, and we can try and connect you up to the wider stranding network of people that may be able to be useful, and if not, they're just nice people to talk to.
That's nice.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. Nestor, I totally agree with you in what you have just said. Nestor just says that the negative perception of the forest department being difficult to approach comes from the fact that they probably don't understand things. So if we explain it to them in simple ways, they'll take it positively. So that is something really important that we need to do in our system, is to bridge that communication gap between the departments and our community. That is so true. Yeah. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to say something? Or should we
Can you
call
hear
it?
me?
Yep. Who is this?
Okay, I'm Dr. Dinesh here. Yeah, I think now you can hear me.
Yes.
So I just wanted to tell you about the Maharashtra scenario. In Maharashtra, we are working with Forest Department from 2013, and we are got a very good response, communication, and support from Maharashtra Forest Department. And we formed one small network of marine responders where in Mumbai as well as in around area of Maharashtra, wherever there are strandings, we are communicated with each other. And I work mostly for Palghar district, and there we have a collaboration with the local NGO, Wildlife Conservation and Animal Welfare Association, with Dahanu Forest Division. And there we have a nice small setup for sea turtles. And every year we rescue around 20 to 40 sea turtles there. Mostly we get 4 species of sea turtles, namely olive ridley, hawksbill, green sea, and sometimes loggerhead also. Uh, we have now we have good facility with X-ray, laser therapy units, and we have proper hospital tanks for them. And we have created lot of awareness among fishermen communities, and they also help us if they come across any strandings, and our team goes to the spot. There we do the inspection, we rescue the turtle, we get them to our center, we do the treatment, rehab, and we also do swimming ability tests before releasing them back to the sea to make sure that they will not have any floating syndromes or any abnormalities while releasing them back to the wild. So I just wanted to tell you that in Maharashtra, our Maharashtra Forest Department is helping us tremendously with the help of Marine, this Mangrove Foundation is also helping us in a big way, and we are thankful to them. I get this platform to thank them for all the support they are providing for marine wildlife rescue and rehabilitation in Maharashtra. So I just wanted to tell you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, there is a question for Andrew, but do you want to do it or email Andrew, or are you happy answering that last one before we call it a day or night or whatever we are? There's somebody asking you, can you please share which factors you considered for the LFPW body condition assessment?
Yeah, that's quite a complicated answer. So maybe if you email me, I'll send you what we did.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Dipani, for giving us this opportunity for all of us to meet. And I think for people like me who are neither research or veterinarians, it's a lot of learning. And I'm also thinking about how can we apply this? How can we share it with other groups that need to understand this, who are working in this space? I just wanted to point out that I know it's not the normal route that we have been doing outreach or anything in terms of when we deal with the government. MOEF is the nodal point, the forest departments are. But because of the blue economy thrust in India, the Niti Aayog is putting in a lot of inputs to the PMO. I'm on some of those teams right now consulting. I can see there's a huge gap in what they think is in the ocean resources and what is actually being shared. So I think the collective wisdom that is there in these networks and in the groups in India, we have to amplify it much more. And that means researchers have to be a little more visible and ready to talk and get out there a little bit, because otherwise there's so much information, but it is not accessible to everyone, and it is not even understandable for most, even if we did take a research paper and give it. So I think I would just say, let's all talk more. Let's talk to these other government bodies as well, because as I said, influence comes from many different spaces and can motivate a lot more acceleration of action. And I think today private sector is also asking questions because they are being forced to meet certain global biodiversity targets, TNFD, etc. And I think these all synergize really well, the kind of knowledge that these kind of efforts generate. So I just want to put that out there that, hey, please be more reachable.
well, you can hold the next webinar. and ask a biologist to talk about what they want to find out from a dead animal.
Now you have to come to Delhi. You have to do it there.
Maybe let Frances make her next coffee for herself. I think, poor thing, she's woken up at 6 a.m. for us
Yeah.
in the cold winter there. So if anybody has anything, please email anything to ask, please email the panelists whenever you want. And hopefully we can all meet again soon. Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Devani, for organizing this. I'm really thankful that you brought me back to this field after a while
We're not letting you
because
go anytime soon.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
So I think as the sole representative person who has been in government working for conservation, I really enjoyed this dialogue, and I think there's a lot Forest Department can do. And because it's very late in the night, I will not elaborate it further. But I would only just say that we have to have trust in the department. It's more often that Forest Department doesn't know what to do in conservation, and they have to be told in the right way so that they take the initiative forward. So thank you very much. Thank you all, fellow panelists and all the participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Good night. Good morning. Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Night.
you.